comprehensive, and so that was
Thank you.
such a great thing that we actually have, for I think our first time actually have a Native American on our calls, making it actually a presentation, except for the very first event that we had. We called it our Sunlight Spectacle 2021 event, and that was actually the very first that launched this whole series, where we had a few guests on that call. But now I think at this point is a good transition for us to engage with Native communities in North America, as well as, of course, the Indigenous communities that we have on our calls all the time from Africa. So we are now in this period, and I'm just looking at the clock, and I think you have 20 minutes. So we will go ahead until you have that hard stop with answering some questions from the people who are on the call. So I'm seeing Prophet Cox. Did you want to ask some questions or make some comments?
Both. I wanted to, just a quick question, John, again, excellent as always. I had a request of you, and also an FYI. The request is that you shared on another forum I was on about some really good news about healing, a step that was taken by with Native American and African people that came in here enslaved. So that's the request. If you share that quickly, I know that's a very short piece. But the other thing is that I don't know if you were aware that, well, you know, aware of the 400 Commission, but the recent mini grants we gave out, they were small, but I didn't get anything that, I don't think you were aware that, like, one of our part of it was to go based on the public law. So I put that in the chat. Number 6 says that you can get funding through that, or not now because the date is passed, but it says to help ensure that the observances of the commemoration are inclusive and appropriately recognize the experiences and heritage of all individuals present at the arrival of Africans in the United States. So it could potentially but they were small, you know, it wasn't like a lot. It was 2,500 to 5,000, but I was hoping that some of these smaller issues across the country, or whoever was a part of, so they're different. But anyway, you can take a look at it and see if it comes back around tomorrow next year. But then also the 400 Commission has another grant that that goes through the National Underground Railroad, and because African people were a part of the journey with the Native Americans on the Trail of Tears. Just take a look at it. That's just an FYI. But can you share quickly, because that was something sort of a model for what could happen, maybe perhaps around the world. But anyway, that was my request.
And
Thank
Julie,
you. And I love your picture, by the way. Yeah. So please send me an email on that, and I'll take Julie's question and answer her question. Or how do you want me to do that?
Yeah, we can go ahead.
You share. Okay, so can you share the piece about the Native American bond with the African Americans and how they started healing already?
Well, I'd like for Juliet, if she could, to put her question to him. Then he can answer both at once, if that's okay with you, please.
Go ahead.
Juliet, what's your question?
Okay, thank you. At evening this side, good evening and good morning that side. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. It's quite a breath of fresh air. Yes, you know, and what's my name is Juliet Miabo. I sit in South Africa. I'm originally from Soweto, and I work with various communities in the different townships of South Africa. And I'm the head of the Soweto CSI Council. So my question is, I'm going to pose it as an Indigenous person of South Africa, specifically because my family comes from Botswana. So Botswana are part of the Indigenous people of South Africa. So, but obviously a lot has happened. We all know what has happened, how as African people in South Africa, the issues that you touched on about how we've the language being taken away, the culture, etc., etc. I see Prince Andrew has something to say.
No, I don't. I'm just waiting for you to get to your question. Go right ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, no, okay, let me make it a statement and then a quick question. So there's a group, what we find that the indigenous communities, all the issues of alcohol abuse, all the issues that you highlighted there, they're still quite pertinent in those communities where we have what you still call indigenous communities. We have what you call the Kru and the Kwe. I don't know if you know anything about them. And though most of them, okay, they do still speak their language, which is Kru and Kwe. But communities like those, as much as there's a bit of development that happens around them, we find that it's very difficult to take them, to help them see beyond, I'll use the word, yeah, the camps that they've been put in, because they were put in camps so that other things must happen. So I don't know what, you've got excellent programs, and I wonder if you do have those communities where, though there is a bit of development, they choose to stay in those camps and not be part of whatever progress or opportunities that may come up. Yes, and I think that would be my main question to say. And also, for me, it's very challenging. That's why when we were celebrating Freedom Day yesterday in South Africa, it becomes very hard because it's freedom, it's political freedom, but as a people, we are still unpacking and allowing ourselves to redefine ourselves. So do you also find that, which is my second question, that it's an ongoing process to redefine yourself while the whole system is still trying to define you, even if they're using economics, you know, because at times the economics, they start defining people and people start giving up their culture in order to make money. So though there's freedom, but there's not always that total freedom, because you have to define your freedom in the context of a system that is quite foreign. So I know what I'm saying, it's more like statements and questions, but I think I'm hoping you've picked those things up. Thank you again. This has been great. Thank you.
All right, John. So you got 1 and 2 to answer. So ball's back in your court, John.
Thank you. And I'm glad because their questions are kind of similar. So my response is that it is ongoing. It's generational trauma. The reservations in the United States were prisoners of war camps, and that's what they call now a reservation, but they were put there and controlled. And sadly, the mentality has become people wait for the handout. They wait for the gate doors to open from the fort, so to speak, and out comes food and blankets. Well, just so everyone knows, we were the first ones in the United States to be genocide with chemical warfare. A lot of my nation was wiped out from blankets with smallpox and other things that were given to them. And they're thinking, oh, good, this will keep us warm. No, it killed us. And similarly, picture this. When they took all of our weaponry away in farming, and we were given rifles with no firing pin. So how is a Native American who at that time, and to make a firing pin, know how to insert it so that that gun can be used? So my ancestors and other nations used to use it like a club, and they'd hit the animal over the head or etc. Because other than that, the gun was useless, the rifle. So things like that took place, and that is part of what we call generational trauma. And many of our nations, elders don't talk about it. Just like right now, you have a lot of people in Ukraine, sadly, that are Holocaust victims. yesterday being recognition of the Ukrainian Holocaust Day from past, and they have generational trauma. Our African American slavery people in and out of, again, I'm speaking pretty wide here because I'm not African American. I just love and with many of them all the time, my whole life, go through similarly. Part of that difference that Juliet spoke to and Ms. Cox is that the healing process has to be a beginning point of cultural and foods, medicine, health, all those things, and with a holistic approach. And Native American people were not allowed to have their own farming in the prisoner of war camps. They were told, no, we'll take care of you. So many of them stopped becoming self-sufficient. And from what I've seen, that hasn't been always the case from African American people. Africa still, they would say, well, if we don't get fed right now, we still need to grow something we can eat. So they still do something opposed to, so to speak, sitting by the gate doors and waiting for them to open. So what has started is that right now, the healing process of films and recognition, one of them being one of our board of advisors, former member who's still engaged, is Jim Warren. He made a movie that you can purchase on Amazon, I believe. It's called Seventh Generation. And he's been going all over the world sharing that. But it talks about the Indian schools where many of our people were, well, all of them were abused in some way there, but many were murdered and killed. And we still are addressing our missing, murdered Indigenous women and children and men issues, as well as elders. And right now, the Cherokee Nation has gone as far, and there's a great video of it, where Chief Hodgkins, principal chief of the Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma, they redid their constitution, which any tribe has to do, that they're overseen by the BI by an approved constitution. And that constitution was updated as a reminder. It didn't change the wording, just updated, more firm. And Debbie Helen, the Secretary of Interior, signed off on approval of it. So, and that is that there are no longer freeman Cherokees. If they're able to quantifiably verify their bloodline and landline and et cetera, then they're Cherokee. Take away the word freeman, because that relates back to slavery and bad things. Similarly, as I mentioned earlier, the Navajo Nation, a lot of people, when I meet someone from that nation, I normally say, I'm honored to meet you from the Dene Nation. And they smile typically and say, thank you. Because Navajo, and it has different meanings, but the wide one that I was told means dirty dog. Do you want to be called dirty dog? No. But now when we meet people, we say that, or even some people, Native America. We were here before America, so you can get into all that, or just always stay proactive in the healing side of love and peace and harmony, and pray for those that don't understand, and use each of those times as an educational moment, help people understand. And that's why typically in our meetings and all meetings, most Native people will use what's called a talking stick. And the person with the talking stick is the only one allowed to speak. Everyone else is supposed to be using both their ears to listen twice as hard as they talk. And then they may openly look at it and say, you know what, I never looked at it from that angle. Okay, I could see your point. And people then try and work through it than being bulldozed. Now, one of the recognized ways is Robert's Rules of Order, right? So a lot of the meetings are Robert's Rules. So I hope, Ms. Cox, that answers your question. The Freeman. So just to be clear for everyone with the Freeman, those were when the tribal nations went through the Death March, Trail of Tears, etc., from other areas. So as an example, the Delaware Nation up in New York area was marched all the way down to Oklahoma, and now is in there's a couple Delaware bands, but there's one that I showed you the picture of. That Delaware Nation is about 15 minutes from the Caddo Nation in Binger, Oklahoma. It's a very rural area, and growth and development in this south area of Oklahoma is what we're working to do. I'm also the president of Southwest Native American Indian Chamber of Commerce, and that's part of my goal is to help grow it. So the Freemen, when they were brought, they were family with many of the tribes, and some not in agreement. Some of the tribes did use them as slaves. Yet when they came into Oklahoma, Texas area, they were under a legal thing called the Freemans. And the Freeman Law, Freeman Acts, which I don't know all the exact details of that name because I've in my mind always blanked it out. But that's where the generational trauma and our people that are saying, oh, I'm a Freeman. That means that they were a mixed blood of some African-American native blood, which obviously happened because many were mixed blood. Just as many of you may not be aware, a lot of the Delaware, as an example, and others were mixed with Asian descent, especially Korean. So there were a huge amount of Asian and Native American people that have mixed. And now, sadly, in some of the tribes, there's corruption going on where they are disenrolling because based on government guidelines for per caps, if they can better control who are the decision makers, which are tribal members, then some of that happens. So all these things we are working through, but it all starts with the holistic approach with family and coaching and training. And with that is finances, people understanding modern tools and better understanding. So now they're self-sustainable. And I hope that answers those questions. Andrew?
Thank you, John. No, I just want to say thank you because I want to highlight the fact that Africans were, well, all of it had to do with the, I won't call it colonization, but that many tribes were denied things. And you know the history better than I do, unless they became so-called civilized tribes. But a part of that is that they were also encouraged to have African slaves. So the battle now, and so I'm only bringing this up with John because he's been a part of the healing process and he does a lot of advocacy in the community, as well as I think in Washington, that the African people have not been able to benefit from the finances that go to reservations because they were excluded as full-blown. Well, you know more about it, John, but thank you for sharing that little bit. I just wanted to make it clear. And thank you for the work that you do, by the way.
Thank you. I'll add to that real brief, sorry, Lloyd, is that the Muskogee Creek Nation, as an example, is right next to the Cherokee Nation. So is the Osage. And they do not recognize African-American people as part of mixed blood with their tribes. And part of the funding process that Biden and Obama were supposed to have done, as well as Trump way back when, and before Trump with Bush, these funds are available. They could have cut it. But you've heard them say now, Biden, get us in office and we'll start helping the indigenous people, African American, et cetera, and release these funds. Well, we're still waiting for a lot of that. But along with that, the Muskogee Creek, as an example, Mohammed Rabala, the mayor of Fort Coffee, Oklahoma, is also should be recognized, in my opinion, as Muskogee Creek. So when I went up to visit him and see the lands, because part of what we're working towards is Fort Coffee and Black Wall Street to re-engage and enhance those areas. So in that, he goes, you need to come to the Chickasha Museum. It's right here. I'm like, sure, let's go. So being that I was raised in California and I did do college out here, we went. Well, Sorrel is Caddo Mounds. They, again, allowed the Muskogee Creek on our lands, but it's stated in all the documentation of the plaques out front, which anyone can look up, cattle lands, cattle museum, cattle relationship. And we did not, and many of the tribes did not join the Confederacy and did not believe in slavery of another person. So I just want to know you to all know that battle is still going on, and Biden has even mentioned that if tribes do not recognize the mixed bloods of any race, if they can prove their lineage, then they do not qualify for these set-aside funds and the trillions that are now becoming available. I have to ask real quick though, sorry. Accent Brown Bear Child, is that a Native American person that has joined us, or First Nations? I've seen your name up here, I'm just curious.
Hi, yeah, actually I was given my Indian.
You have to speak up. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Much better. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, actually I've been working with Stephanie. I've been doing a lot of work with my Indigenous sisters in Northern Canada, and we've been putting together community. I was introduced to Stephanie a few months back, and we are working at collaborating our ideas. I am looked upon as a fair skin and welcomed into the matriarchal circles because of all the work that I do. We've brought a new medical device into Canada, and specifically brought it into the nations to help with diabetes. It's called Beamer, and it improves systemic blood circulation. So that was the beginning of our getting together. The ladies, all of my tribal sisters, we're putting together an Indigenous knowledge sanctuary along with our communities, and basically turning our systems upside down with regards to education, taking the kids out of the classroom and teaching them the ways of Mother Earth. And so, yeah, with that, again, I'm working with Stephanie and now meeting this whole group. I'm excited to work together because we have a lot on the go. I also have a brother over in Akwesasne. He's a Mohawk Indian, and we're wanting to implement 1,000 holistic centers on Turtle Island. So I look forward to working with you, John. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to everybody working with us. We all need to jump in together. So Andrew, back to you. I know Julia has her hand up, but time-wise, you and Lloyd.
How much time do you have before the hard stop, John?
Like a few minutes.
I think so, yeah. So we're coming, I think, near the end myself as well. I have to get off the call probably in about 5 minutes or so as well.
I'll still be here, so we'll still be here for those that can still be here and choose to. So, John, any last thoughts before you wrap it up?
I feel bad if Juliet's not able to.
Yeah, Juliet has her hand up.
Oh, I can see. Okay, Juliet, please go right ahead.
Okay, yes, thank you. I'll be quick. I just wanted to highlight a special link to what Prophet Cox said, and also the difference in terms of South Africa, because with the apartheid system, the whole idea was to take away the land. So that's why the issue of the land is so important. So they took away the land and put people in camps, or that we call townships now. What it then did, that it actually forced the Africans in South Africa to be the people, I don't know, that's that word that you say, where you wait at the gate and wait, because the whole idea was that, no, we put you in camps and we will take care of you. So, so that mindset, that's why there's a whole generational trauma, because that mindset where people were used to the apartheid government coming in, a bit of bread here, a bit of that, caused a lot of problems, because, okay, firstly, the land is still not there, but also the mentality of waiting for government to do something has actually impacted even the current generations. So even if it needs to be changed, people want to do their own things, farm their own land, do agriculture. There's still no land. So though there is, as I say, though there is freedom, but there are no resources. So South Africa is in a very strange situation compared to a lot of African countries. And what it then means, when people come from other African countries, they come and say, oh, South Africans are lazy. It's like, okay, we give us something to work on. You know, I'm talking generally. So it's, I think as South Africans would identify more with what has happened with the indigenous people, various in America and other parts, in New Zealand and in Australia. We also identify a lot with what happened in those countries. But also we're still dealing with the issue of the mixed bloods, that we're given a special race with special privileges. So it's I'm glad we touched on the issue of generational trauma, and it needs to be continuous generational healing as a process. And this is it's very good. I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. So my last closing thought you asked, Andrew, is we all, and I'm grateful for this meeting of like-minded people. Lloyd, so again, thank you for your persistence, and Andrew, and giving me the blessing to be able to speak and share. But we all need to work together. None of us can do this alone. And it needs to be a holistic healing of mind, body, and spirit, as we talk about all the time. And by the way, my Indian name that was given to me when I was a young child is Spirit. And I had no idea, but they told me I would be working and reaching out to thousands and touching and helping to change the lives of, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions. Now, I've already done some of that, thank God. And part of that is the book I wrote, The Millionaire Loan Officer, and my efficacy of showing there are better ways with the proper foundation, like a strong house, right? What do you have to start with? A strong foundation. And that's what all of us here on this call, I'm hearing and echoing and feeling, we all need to continue to work. As a last thought, sorry to add a little sad point here, but Hitler read the actual stories that took place of the genocide of Native American people through the death marches or longest walks, etc., and the blankets, etc. So that, and including mutilation and tests of other peoples, because that was all done to our Native American, African American brothers and sisters, Asian, so forth, here in the United States. And that was his go-to book. And like that, post-traumatic stress, generational trauma is partly what all of our elders and others are going through. So I encourage us all to work through that. And like both sides of two sides, if you will, we need to bless and protect our elders and we need to bless and protect and strengthen our youth and help those two come together. And even if it means we text or call occasionally our elders just to say hi and see how you're doing, we need to keep the spirit strong. Creator knows.
Before you
Yeah.
go, John, I do want to let you know, I'll be connecting with Erwin Russell on the call with us now. His focus is on poverty alleviation. Primarily, he's been focused on Africa, but I want to encourage my corporation to connect the dots between his institute and your organization so we can have some outcomes today that we can actually quantify and move forward. I'll connect you afterwards.
Thank you. And I believe we have been speaking through Baba, and but like you, I talked to so many, so I'll have to see my records. But thank you, everybody. I do have to go. My information is in the chat, and please feel free. Please keep me and our people in your works, our team, and we need ongoing support. And my trip up to Alaska, that I don't run into a polar bear. All right.
Or he
Thank
doesn't
you
run-
very
Thanks,
much, John.
he doesn't run into you.
What?
Or the polar bear doesn't run into you.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, John. Thank you so
I'm
much. That
gonna
was
just,
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Thank you
yeah,
so
I'm gonna
much.
just,
Thank you.
yeah, I'm just
Thank you, John.
saving my chat notes. Thank you, everyone. God bless.
Yeah, I'm
Bye-bye.
gonna stop.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop recording and start recording again.